All right, this is Jacob with Good2Go Gear. You're going to see a little bit of just a talking head today. I'm going to go over and insert some pictures of some preps that we have as a family. It's for hurricane preparedness. We've had to evacuate at least twice as a family due to hurricanes. Once when we lived in kind of central Texas, and once when we lived in southeast Texas. Throughout my life, I grew up in Mississippi. I had to prepare for, we didn't necessarily evacuate, we had to prepare for many hurricanes. The two major ones that I lived through were Hurricane Ivan and then Hurricane Katrina the next year. Katrina definitely did way more damage. Ivan luckily didn't do much damage to Mississippi where I grew up, but it did a lot of damage to Florida. We actually went and helped with some recovery efforts over there. So hurricane prep for me living in the southeastern United States has been a big part of my life. My wife is from out west, so this is not totally this is foreign for her. She doesn't understand it. We've been married a long time, and she's been with me through some hurricanes and situations that we've had to prepare for. So she gets it, but it's just kind of new to her. The first picture I'm going to insert, I'll put that here. That's a picture of our kind of camp cooking. If we just had to grab that, that's got food for my 4 members. There's 4 of us in the family, so 4 members of my family. It's got camp, stoves, camp, like propane, camping pots, pans, not really pans, but just some pots or cast iron skillets, plates, stuff like that we need, that if we could only grab this stuff, we should be pretty set for camping. Or bugging out, if we had to leave, we're not gonna, we're gonna have blankets, we're gonna have, a few conveniences for cooking and eating and cleaning, toiletries. We have a fan, a DeWalt battery operated fan. I have 3 5-hour batteries, the 5 mAh, whatever the big batteries, and then 4 or 5 of the 1-hour batteries. And that 1-hour, the little smaller 1 mAh batteries will power that fan for about 6 hours. We found on low. And you won't see a tint or anything in it. I won't open it up and go through that today, but we keep that stage. This is what the part that upsets my wife, is we keep that stage kind of in the kitchen, between the kitchen and the dining room, because that's really the only spot that I have to store it, where it's still able to be easily grabbed and ran out of the house with. The next picture I'm going to insert, you'll see that here. Some of that is the food and water preps that we have. We have that prep for, like, when COVID hit, we were okay. We had, 3 months worth of food and water, not water, but 3 months worth of food in the pantry. So we were able to eat. I went out shopping when my family stayed home, and I went out shopping during the COVID pandemic, and we were able to just kind of replace what we used. We still had a decent supply of food. You'll see we have water. We try to maintain at least 6 packs of bottled water in the 1-gallon jugs. There's milk jugs that we've refilled, and we have that for either bathing, flushing toilets, whatever we may need it for the animals. We drain them and refill them occasionally. I don't know if you'll see it in the picture, but my wife writes down the month and year that she, started using them. We rotate the jugs out about once a year. So it's important that you do maintain and rotate your food and your water preps. The next picture you'll see here, these are our 2 bug out bags. And I say bug out bags loosely. It's mostly just the black backpack is a hiking bag that's got clothes for my wife and I, and the green, it's actually some kind of a camelback backpack that's got clothes for my son and my daughter. And we've tested this out. When Hurricane Laura hit, we were living in southeast Texas, and we got an evacuation order from the governor. We chose to stay, and then the morning of, it went from like a category 3 to a category 4 hurricane. So we decided to leave. That morning we actually drove to Mississippi, where my parents lived, to go stay with them. But what we found that morning was, I woke up at 7 o'clock that morning. I was off of work due to the weather. We had everybody at work stay home. And that morning I woke up at 7, and by 7:40, me and my entire family had our kits like this, which is the kit that's in the kitchen. Wasn't like that at the time, but we were able to I woke up at 7 o'clock, my family's still asleep, and by 7:40, my entire family and I had loaded the truck and we're on the road to leave. So we were able to grab all of this, and within 40 minutes, we had clothes, food, water, and some supplies that we may or may not, you don't know who will make it to where your destination is or not. We weren't able to do that. We had to drive a good 6-7 hours to get to my parents' house. and we were able to get to safety. And we didn't need a lot of what we had other than the clothes and the toiletries, but we were prepared. And the food that was in the fridge, we were able to empty it. I have a big white 72-quart Igloo cooler and some other smaller coolers. We were able to empty the fridge. Anything that was perishable, we emptied and brought with us, and we were able to put it in my parents' freezer and refrigerator. But I'd say a 40-minute woke up like dead ass asleep to gone in 40 minutes for my entire family of 4 was pretty decent. So we've had a few drills like this. We live again, we've moved again down here in the southeast where we have to be worried about hurricanes. That's why kind of my last video was about like the tire prep bag and the truck, prepping the truck. Our truck is our bug out vehicle. It's, Z71 off-road package. It's got skid plates. It's got all-wheel drive, four-wheel drive. I've got the camper shell for keeping stuff dry. That's why you'll see I used to have a flatbed pickup truck, and I've got these boxes where I can strap them down in like the Pelican case, or I can strap it down on the back of the truck. They're waterproof, and if it is raining or whatever, we can still have dry supplies and clothes when we get to our destination. A camper shell makes that even better. The deck system means I can actually take a lot of stuff, so we keep the vehicle prepped pretty much year round. And now we can just throw this stuff in the back, haul ass. And the camper shell does 2 things for us. It provides us shelter for our stuff, and if we can't make it somewhere that we have safety or friends or somewhere we can stay or can't afford a hotel, we sleep in the back of the truck somewhere if we needed to. So it provides shelter for our stuff, shelter for us, and it's a lot of stuff like that. But yeah, all in all, it's hurricane season, so I'm going to start kind of a series. I might go through our totes, refresh some stuff, go through our backpacks and clothes, just show you. I mean, the backpacks are kind of boring, it's just clothes. The food's also just kind of boring. So yeah, we're going to do some hurricane prep, because living down here in the southeastern United States, it's important that you're ready to go. Remember a year or so ago, 2 years ago, there was that hurricane that hit the southeast. It hit, I think, parts of Florida, then continued north and just devastated parts of North Carolina and Tennessee. You never know when you're going to have to be ready. You never know when you're going to have to bug out. Because I'm going to be honest with you, Tennessee, I would not have guessed, or even western North Carolina, I would not have guessed that they would have been devastated that badly from the hurricane. And it wasn't necessarily the hurricane; it was the amount of rainfall that caused mudslides and roads to wash out, and it isolated people. And that's why it's important, in my opinion, to have some food preps. Have a good amount of food, have a good amount of water. They saw the importance of we need to work on. I had a generator. We sold it when we moved out west, and now we're back down here. I need to get a generator for powering the house again. Or battery backups. We do have a big Anchor battery backup that'll work for some things, but it's not going to last for days. I know during Hurricane Katrina, as a teenager, I was, what was that? It was 2005, so I was 19. We didn't have power for 3-4 weeks. We did have a generator, and they started rationing fuel. That's something to consider, but they only gave fuel with where I lived in Mississippi. They only gave us enough fuel for, I think it was, they rationed us. It was like 5 to 10 gallons a person. And then eventually they were like, no more fuel unless you're emergency personnel, law enforcement, firefighter, EMS, power companies, essential people only got fuel. So we had a generator. We were powering the house, or not the house, but just like we got to that when we got low on fuel, we were only powering our freezer to keep food good. And then after, a few days of us not having the generator, because we didn't have any fuel, we started eating the food out of the freezer. But yeah, we got where we were only powering the freezer and the washer and dryer to keep us in some clean clothes. We didn't run out of food or water or anything, but I've lived through this. So this is something that's kind of important to me. I hope it's important to you, especially if you live in the southeastern United States. But anyway, yeah, this is going to be a little series I'm going to do, showing some preps and ways to maybe think, and just putting it in your mind to think and be prepared. Don't wait for the last minute to, we waited for Hurricane Laura the last minute to the last, it was going to hit in a few hours. I think it hit while we were still driving to my parents' house, but it hit behind us, and so it didn't affect us at all. It did affect us coming home. It affected us driving back home to where we lived, because the interstate was closed. It hit Lake Charles so hard that when we had to come down and go through Lake Charles to get back to where we were living, we couldn't. It was closed for 2-3 days because of all the debris and the destruction. So think about that kind of stuff and put this in your mind. And if you live in that part of the United States, definitely keep it in your mind. Think about it and start preparing now, so that when it happens, you're not last minute. And we were last minute, but we were prepared. I'd say 40-minute bug out time is pretty good. I tried for an hour, and we did it in 40 minutes. I remember calling my dad, and I called him at 7:01, 7:02 when I read the news, like, man, this is bumped up, can we come? And he's absolutely. And at 7:45, we were already on the road. I called him and said, hey, we're coming. And he was like, there's no way. And I was like, oh, we're absolutely on the way. So that's what being prepared and being prepped and ready to go can do for you. Because bugging out is not always a end of the world, the disaster, all the stuff people prep for. Where, I didn't bring all my guns. I left my guns in a safe. My safes are anchored to the floor in my house, so I'm not worried about anybody stealing it. I'm not worried about them blowing away in a hurricane or tornado because they're anchored to the concrete, so it'd have to be pretty substantial to do that. But I just brought what we needed and we took off. So yeah, anyway, put this in your mind and start thinking about how to be prepared and being good to go. Anyway, Jacob, thanks.